People, here she is, book number 2 coming out. It's Kate Russo. Kate, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Well, I'm good. Here it is.
Yay.
Tell Allison. What a great book. What a great book. I do love first person narrative when I love the
Mhm.
voice. And I loved this voice from the first paragraph. I really did. And
Yes,
it makes,
excellent.
I just, there's something so delicious about a, a first person narrative when you fall in love with the character's voice.
Hmm.
I don't know if you're that way, but I do love it when it's done in a way that resonates with me.
Yeah. Well, this book started out in third person, actually.
Ow!
And
God.
it took a couple of people saying to me, it needs to be in first person for me to be like, you're right. And then
Wow.
as soon as I did that, it was like, poof, like it all became clear to me. And that first paragraph, which, I think is probably one of my favorite, maybe my favorite
It's a
paragraph in the
great
whole
first
book.
paragraph.
Um, that didn't exist in the first couple of drafts, and it was as soon as I went to that first person that I was able to write that paragraph, and it was like everything changed, and I was like, okay,
Isn't
perfect.
that
Yeah.
isn't that isn't that just the way creativity works?
Yeah.
You don't know and then you do. Wow. So now see, I got to tell you, I wouldn't have guessed that for a second. I would have thought this felt like one of those novels where I woke up and I heard this character talking to me and I just had to hear what she had to say, but no, no, no,
No,
no.
no,
Well, and
no.
I guess I mean, it's a literary novel. But it has a plot-driven element because there's a central
Mhm.
mystery to it, which you
Yeah.
introduce right at page one, which makes and it's what I love about it. So for maybe I don't know, I'm gonna let you do this because you have, I assume, worked up how to talk about the book without revealing anything you can't reveal. So
Yeah.
maybe tell us a little bit about
It,
it as much as you
it,
can.
yeah. I mean, it's not easy to talk about without sort of giving things away, but I will say that it started out. And maybe this will become apparent as readers read it, but it didn't start out as a thriller. The thriller element of this book sort of came along later on, when I realized that it needed some momentum. So
Hmm.
really started out as a character study, as most of the things that I do. That's where I begin. I just think, okay, who are my central characters, and who are they to each other? And
Right.
that's how this started out with Rachel and Allison. And then as people started to read, my editor and my agent started to read, they said, well, I think there's a real chance that we could ramp up sort of, okay, well, what happens to Allison? So the central story in this book is, okay, Rachel and Allison grow up together. They're friends, they're not friends. Uh,
Right.
Rachel lives and Allison dies. And the story is sort of Rachel's reckoning with Allison's death, and really whether or not the choices that she made had anything to do with Allison's death. And
Right.
so that's what we were able to kind of, or what I felt like in the end I needed to build more into the story.
That isn't okay. See,
Yeah.
I have a pretty good nose for this stuff, but my nose was not operative as I was reading that. That is very cool. Well, you see, people, you see, there's all different ways. Thriller is an interesting thing, I will say. I think it has a thriller element, although I will say people who devour thrillers might be unaccustomed still even to the pace at which it has a brisk pace. But look,
Yeah.
this is a book written in first person, a reflective young woman who has got a lot to say and think about and is going through a lot of stuff on her own.
Hmm.
And so it does read like a character, it reads in certain ways like a character driven
Yeah.
college story in certain ways,
Yeah.
in terms of the voice. So it blends things. Well, good for you. Good for you for taking advice, for having the humility to not say,
Yes.
"Get out of my
Come on.
story. I'll do what the hell I want to do."
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So let's back up a little bit because you are an artist, a visual artist, as
Yes.
well as a writer. Okay. So did you grow up writing stories and drawing pictures to go with it and said, I like doing both? Or were you all one and not the other? Like, how did these two separate, because I mean, there's similarities, but there's a lot of differences. So how
Yeah.
did these two passions evolve?
So the painting and the drawing, that all came, I would say that all came first, in the sense that that's what I sort of stated at a young age that I wanted to be.
How
Uh,
young?
so I mean, I think probably I wanted to be a marine biologist like every child for a while, but after I passed that up,
Yeah.
after I got over that I realized that actually taking care of whales isn't what I want to do for my whole life. Then I realized I wanted to be an artist, and
How old were you?
I was probably 15, 16.
Oh, okay. So a little
And
later. I mean, I know it
yeah,
sounds weird, but actually, a lot of it comes like 7, 8, 9. There's a lot of like writers.
yeah.
That's a very average age for a lot of
Yeah.
writers who know
Well,
they
I
want to write.
I wasn't and still don't consider myself a particularly talented draftsperson. And a lot of my artwork these days is very color focused, very centered in abstraction, and so I found my niche. I can draw a picture when I have to, but it's not like
Now you see,
where
but
I'm
you
at.
see, all right, I'm going to say to
Yeah.
you, my wife's an
Yeah.
artist, and I'm going to say to you, and I say to her because she bemoans her ability to render also. Like,
Yeah.
in other words, and I was like, if you really wanted pictures where the things looked exactly like hands in particular, she can't,
Yeah.
then you would be able to do it. But the truth is, that's not where your passion is
Yeah.
for something else, and so your
Yeah.
skill evolves to it. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. And
I
I think
I
that's
think
true.
you can
Yeah.
do what you want to do.
Yeah, yeah. And so I went to college for painting, and then when I was in college, I also happened to get involved in the school newspaper
Okay.
and found myself in the position of being news editor of said paper. So I was telling stories at this point,
Right.
but they were news stories,
Yeah.
and I realized, it took me 4 years, but I realized just how not cut out for that kind of storytelling I was.
I
Couldn't
went
do
to
it.
school for journalism. It took me what two classes of a journalism class to say.
Yep. Yep.
Can I just say
No.
there's a scene in this book where our narrator, who's also on the newspaper,
Yeah.
and she's talking about her relationship to news, and I was like, my God, I had to do this investigative reporting on some guy who didn't change the fire extinguisher, and there was a fire, and no one got hurt, but someone hadn't done their job. And I thought, what am I doing? I want to
Yeah.
rake this poor guy over the coals for this. So
Yeah.
anyway, I identified with her relationship to news day.
Yes, and I essentially had the same. I was just writing article after article about dining hall waste, and bugging the dean of students about sort of things that were on the security log that she was never going to tell me, like what
Right,
student had done what thing, and
right.
and it just felt futile, and I didn't enjoy it. And then this real story came up where one of my classmates was murdered, and I had to
Oh,
cover. Yeah, so what the
oh, so
heart of
that
this novel,
okay.
yeah, so the heart of
Wow.
this novel is kind of that's where the comparison begins and ends.
Right. Gotcha.
Um, Everything else is completely different, but that sort of essential essence of like, oh God, I've been spending a lot of time doing something that I don't want to do,
Yeah.
and I grew up in a literary family. My father told me day one, I think you're going to be a writer. I said,
He
no, I'm not.
did.
My God, since like young, young, young. And I just disagreed with him the whole time. I said I would never follow in your footsteps. Who would do that? That's such a stupid idea.
Right.
And then, sort of in my mid 30s, I had to sort of go to him with my tail between my legs and be like, I wrote a book. Would you mind reading it?
God,
So,
that would be so. God, see, that's a such. So for those listeners, it's Richard Russo. So big deal. Kind of. It's tough. We were talking a little bit beforehand, and I always think it's an
mm,
interesting. People assume it's kind of like, oh, nepo baby. It's like no, no, no. The challenge of like being yourself
yeah,
and just being like, because I didn't have to compare myself to anybody.
yeah, yeah,
My people were comparing themselves to me because I was the only one they knew who was writing. It was the stupid
yeah,
stuff. So you had to not just get him to read it, but I think that's like a fraught moment for both father and daughter.
yeah,
The father
yeah,
wants to love it,
yeah,
but he's also a writer, and he's like, I knows what I likes and all this. So
yeah.
God,
I
what a
knew that
moment.
he would be honest, and that was one of the reasons that I did it. Was that I think that's one of those moments where he loves me too much and he loves writing too much to not be
Right.
honest.
Right. Okay.
So I knew when he told me, I think I gave him the first three chapters of my first book, Superhost, and all I wanted him to do was say, "Stop! This isn't for you," or "Keep going if
Oh,
you thought it was
right,
good." And
right,
he said,
right.
"Keep going," and that's what I've done.
Well, and also, if he should know of all people,
Yeah,
someone who's been writing his whole life. I've
yeah,
never actually interviewed Richard, but your dad.
yeah,
But I'm sure he's been at this a while.
yeah,
That you know, you you should never tell anyone to stop in a way because
Yeah.
they know what's in a story that when no one else, it's a kind of a weird thing, but no one has the right to say this is not the future for you. Only you can really know it,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Absolutely. I think, if you sit down and you commit to it and you put that much work in, I think in some way you just are a writer regardless of whether or not it gets published. I mean,
of course.
the journey of publishing is so fraught. And there's a lot more to being a writer than being published. And
Oh,
accepting that in the early on process, I think really helped me to continue writing.
you know what it reminds me of? I ran track in high school, and it was a big experience for me in a lot of ways. But I wrote about it afterwards when I said what early on, actually in college, I started writing about it, and it occurred to me that there was something the other boys, and I all went through when we got down on that starting line that we were all faced with in some way about good and bad and right and wrong and what are you up
Mhm.
to that was more important that whoever won or lost didn't matter. We were all going through it in a
Yeah.
certain way. And I kind of feel like writing's the same way, whether you get published or you're a bestseller, you win awards, whatever, there's something you face in the blank page that is
Mhm.
universal regardless of the outcome.
Yeah, and actually that camaraderie has been a big thing for me because when I started doing this, all of my friends are, they're creatives, but they're
Right.
artists.
Right. They're
I
visual
didn't
artists.
really
Yeah.
and I didn't really know any other writers except for my dad, and he's kind of a big one to know, but
Yeah.
it's taken me a little while to sort of, yeah, find my own patch, find my own group of writers
Yeah.
that I get along with, that I can share my anxieties with, because you need a
Hey,
group
you
to
should hang out
survive.
with Joe Hill
Yeah.
since he's right. Another guy. I don't know if he lives in Maine or not, but
I don't know if he does either, but I have had to read a lot of Joe Hill interviews just to see how he handles it. Yeah.
yeah.
'Cause,
Well,
yeah,
he's his own guy now. I mean,
absolutely.
he's his own
Yeah,
guy for sure.
he's
So
done it.
good on him. And of all the
Yeah,
people, it's
yeah.
okay. So, the thing about visual, so you can see one of my guitars is being repaired, but I got
Mm.
music. I love music.
Hmm.
There's a lot of similarities, I think, and I'm really more of a composer than a musician, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of similarities between writing music and writing prose.
Hmm.
But there's differences too. And it seems to me that one of the big differences between making art and writing is, I know it sounds weird, but just being able to physically step back and see the whole thing that you're making,
Hmm.
unless you're doing some gigantic panel. Whereas
Yeah.
in writing, it's so up. I mean, Bob Dylan talked about when he was writing his memoir, he could never hold the whole thing in his head, whereas when he did a song, he could always
Yeah.
hold the song in his head. So does that difference between the whole piece and what you're working on as a novel compared to novels, does that resonate?
That absolutely. I've never thought about it that way, but you're exactly right. So one of the things that my painting professor taught me, that I've in college, that I've kept with me for my whole life, is that a painting needs to look good up close and far away. And
Ah,
so I do
ah.
that all the time. I make sure that I am, that the painting feels as strong to me up close as it does far away, and vice versa. And so I I've been trying to figure out a way to translate that advice into writing for a very long time.
Well, you know what? The up close is that sentence, and the far
Yes,
away is
yes,
like, how does this chapter reading, right? Is that the closest
exactly.
thing?
Exactly. And when I first started writing, I really, really tried to be the person who just wrote a whole rough draft and then went back. And I've gotten to the point now where I'm just too excited to read what I just wrote to just sort of
Excited.
keep going. Yeah, because I want
Good.
to.
Good for you. Good for
Yeah,
you.
kind of. I think you have to be your own cheerleader,
Yes.
but because it's like every day I read what I wrote the day
Yep.
before
Yep.
to help
Yep.
push me
Yes.
into where I'm going.
Yep.
And it's sort of like starting with a blank, like it's horrible to start with a blank canvas. And so I always start with yesterday's writing. And so I do find myself sometimes not moving forward because I'm just going back and tinkering and tinkering and tinkering. And that's the downside to that.
Now, but I'll tell you, this is I teach a lot of writing, but it's sort of the emotional challenges of writing. And one of the things I
Yeah.
say, it's great when you're working on a book. Because for a while I wrote 5 essays a week, to do one every day. And so
Gosh, yeah, very
I
good.
really started with
Yeah.
nothing. But
Yeah.
it's so nice to
Hmm.
have that, whatever you wrote, 3 or 4 page,
Yeah.
whatever, or even just a page to get you back in. Because don't you also have to kind of remember? I mean, you know the story, but don't you have to really
Yeah.
remember the story to get into it again? Because it's not the same as standing outside of it.
Yeah, absolutely. My husband calls it the submarine. He's like, okay, it's going into the submarine because
Yeah. Is
that's
he a writer also?
he's an artist. He's a
Oh, you
photographer
okay?
and
So you guys are
sculptor.
just
So
you're all in. You're all
yeah,
in
yeah.
over there.
So
Okay.
we talk about going into each other's submarines, but
Yeah.
mine in particular is very. It'll take me a while to come back up. So I'll come downstairs and I think I'm ready to make dinner, but actually I'm still turning things over, and he just has to wait until I actually officially come back
I
come
love
back.
it. I actually say when I talk to one of the biggest challenges for some writers is starting, and
Mhm.
I've become evangelical about being conscious of how you start, and I
Yeah,
liken it to going into the you can't throw a switch. You got to go down. You have to
yeah,
descend, and
yeah.
you're not there. You don't live there. You
Hmm.
got to get there, and then you got to slowly come out. I
Yeah,
like it. The submarine. I might
yeah,
borrow that.
yeah. It's all yours.
Oh, thank you. So I would think also that, I mean, the thing about music, for instance, the thing I like about it and hate
Mm.
about it, I like it that it's physical, but what I don't like is like, come on, hands. I know what I want to hear. Now just do it,
Yeah.
and or voice, And the painting's the same thing. It is a physical, well, it
Hmm.
depends. If you're doing, I know you do sculpture too. I don't know how that
Yeah.
works, but certainly with painting, there is the issue of like, can I get this
Hmm.
my body to have this thing happen. Whereas with writing, the body is really not involved. I would say it
Yeah.
is sometimes, but for the most part,
Yeah.
not. Do you ever think about the difference between the physical and the non-physical part of writing and arts?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that but I would say that they both do that to me. When I'm painting, I think this is what I want to do, and then I go to do it, and the mark that I make doesn't look like what I want the mark to be in my head.
Right. Do
And
you like
and
it
I
better sometimes?
sometimes,
Sometimes. Okay.
sometimes,
Yeah.
and then but with writing, it's the same. Like I'll think, oh, this is a brilliant idea. This is a beautiful relationship that I'm creating, and it's all in my head. And then I go to write it down, and it is just like, why won't it come out?
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
and so it feels very similar, and and both
Yeah.
they both have to go through your fingers. So there's
It's
something.
true. Well, there's that thing with writing was
Yeah,
like I can feel it,
yeah,
but that is not there on the it's like I am not you have to because you've got to like I got to stop and say I got to see it differently. I got to
yeah,
think like I'm not understanding the thing that I'm trying to express because it ain't there.
yeah,
It just isn't there.
yeah.
All right, so you divide your time between the UK and America. Most of the people I know who have that is because a spouse is involved in that
Mm.
decision. Is that the case for you? Is your hubby a Brit?
He is.
I
He
knew
is.
it.
He
Okay.
is British. We met in art school, so I went over there to
Match.
do my MFA in
Yeah.
painting, and he was doing an MFA in sculpture, and so that's how we met. And we do spend a fair amount of time over there. It's not an easy thing to do. London is an
Yeah.
incredibly expensive place to
Yeah. Yeah.
live, so we spend far too much money on Airbnbs going over there. But it's I mean, particularly for the art side of our lives, it's necessary.
Right.
The gallery scene over there and keeping in touch with the artists that we know over there. But I actually find that in terms of my actual making art, I barely do any of it over there, just because you can't really bring
Do you
paints.
have a studio in the house that you
I've
work
got a
in?
studio in my house in Portland, where I can do
Okay.
absolutely in Maine, where I can do
Right.
absolutely everything,
Right.
and I love it. And then when I go to London, I'm almost exclusively a writer. I go to galleries and I
Right.
do exhibitions, but when you're packing, I'm just packing my computer.
Right.
So my brain really switches into storytelling when I'm in London.
All
So
right. So with music, it's easy for me. I write in the morning if when I do music. I can well because I'm not a pro. I do it when I want. But I do it every day. But it's
yeah,
not my thing. But you're a professional artist, professional writer. So
yeah.
and it's different kind of part of your brain. But I would think if you're working on a novel for 3 hours, I don't think I would be inclined to want to like I would be done wanting to be super creative at that point. So
Mm.
how do you divide your time between artist Kate and writer Kate?
Yeah, well, I've gotten to the point where actually I don't do the big 3 hour sets anymore. So it's kind of usually it's deadline driven. So if I know
Right.
that if I've got a book that needs to be edited, then I'm doing that. If I've got an exhibition coming up, then I'm doing
Oh,
that
okay.
work. But when there's no, so I'm in a kind of no deadline zone right now. So this book has been finished. It's going through publicity, and my next solo exhibition is in the summer of 2026. So next
Oh,
year,
you got
and
some
towards this year,
time.
I'm gearing up for that show. But I do have this little window where I can play around, and in that time, it's usually a little bit of writing, like an hour of writing, then an hour of
All
drawing or
right.
painting, and
Okay.
then and I just kind of hop back and forth between the two until I get tired.
That's wow. That sounds
Yeah,
pretty good to me, actually.
it's lovely. I mean,
You
what a
have
great
children?
life. I don't
I
because
thought not.
I
It did not
couldn't.
sound like the life of a woman with children.
No, I've always sort of thought, and I'm sure a lot of people would yell at me for it, but I've always sort of thought if I had children, I'd have to give up either the writing or the painting, and I was unwilling to do that. So,
You know, I
yeah,
don't know that you would have to, but
yeah.
I remember when I had children, I was studying martial arts, I was studying the
Mhm.
flute, I was writing, I was working, and when the kids came along, I was like, something's gotta go. And I think it was the
Yeah,
flute. Actually, it was the flute that was the first to go,
yeah, yeah,
because it's just a lot. You just kind of
yeah,
think it's okay. Hey,
yeah.
maybe when it's another creative act having children. It is. It's the whole thing. So do what you want to do. And
Yeah.
so, so are you're in Portland right now?
I am in Portland right now. Yeah.
Does your husband, does he have a studio or, but sculpture? I would think he needs,
He's
like,
mostly in the dark room these days. So
ah,
we had our
ooh,
house it was falling apart. My house is from 18 in the 1860s it was built, so it was
all
falling
these
apart.
New England homes. Okay. All right.
And so we had a lot of refurbishments done, as a lot of people did right after COVID, because we were in it all the time.
Right.
And so in that time, we put a dark room in the basement.
Oh,
And
nice.
so it's actually, he works almost entirely in the basement, which I think would drive me mad, but he seems to love. And I've got my studio on the top floor of the house, which used to be the attic. And so
Yeah.
I'm in the attic and he's in the basement. And and at lunch and at dinner time, we just both sort of meet in
Neat.
the middle. It's great.
That's nice. Hey, you know what's great about being married to another artist, as am I, is they
Yeah.
understand the alone time. They aren't jealous. Like
Hmm.
you having to go and be alone makes perfect sense to another artist. If you were married to an extrovert, for instance,
Yeah.
it would be very complicated, your relationship to solitude.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. This was, when we met and we started dating, we just sort of knew, because it was the other person who really was going to allow us that, that, what is it, the protector of my solitude. I can't remember who said that, but it
Yeah,
really feels like that,
yeah.
that we really protect each other's solitude.
Yeah, it's I've had this conversation with many writers now, but the whole COVID thing, COVID had a lot of downsides, but me having to be home all the time was not one of them. It was not a problem for me at all. And not for a
Yeah.
lot of writers, honestly, because this is what they
No.
do anyway.
Absolutely. I
Um,
I was absolutely fine with it. And, I mean, I was very aware of the horrors that were going on around me, but at the same time, having an excuse not to have to go out and stay at home, man, oh my God, wonderful.
But
Yeah.
I also think it highlights one of the beauties of the art. I'm writing a book right now about what the arts teaches you about just being a human being and
Yeah.
the all-day artist, translating it to sort of living as an artist.
Yeah.
And one of those things is kind of like I am a self-contained source of joy, and like it comes from me. It's
Yeah.
coming through. I don't really
Hmm.
need the playground is interesting, but even what I play with comes from me. And I think
Yeah.
that's something that the arts teaches us. Like go inside. That's where you and then bring it forward as opposed to running from bar to bar and club to
Yeah.
club or job to job. Does that make sense?
100%. I think learning how to entertain yourself is one of the biggest things that artists need to do. If you can't entertain yourself, you're not going to entertain anybody else. And I think that that's,
No, yes. Thank
that
you.
that,
Thank
that
you.
is that
Yes.
is, I think, something people forget. That if you're writing and it's a slog to you, it's going to be a slog to the reader. So entertain yourself. I think there's this idea that it has to be painful. It doesn't have to be
No,
painful.
no, God,
Entertain
no,
yourself.
stop, stop. I hate it
Have
is sometimes,
fun.
when it's
Yeah.
painful is when you try to make yourself write something you're not interested in. It's when
Yeah.
you try to force it. But no, it
Yeah.
shouldn't be painful. Why do it? There's no money guaranteed in any of this. There's
Yeah.
no there's no guarantees. You want something painful, go be an investment banker or something. I don't
Yeah.
know, but
Yeah.
why do it doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Well, that's okay. So, all right. So this is novel number two. How
Yes.
long after your debut did you start this one?
I was started it. Well, the debut got postponed, so it was supposed to come
Okay.
out basically by 6 months because of the pandemic. So
Right.
by the time it came out, I had already started this book. I was
Okay.
kind
All
of at
right.
the beginning. So I started this one in 2020.
Okay.
And
So,
yeah,
how are you feeling? I mean, it's okay. It's coming out in a week. It'll be.
yep,
I mean, it's kind of out. It's trickling. I've got my
yes,
copy and so on.
yeah.
How you feeling right now?
Oh, I mean, it's the nervous phase. It always is. You know, these kinds of like this the 2 weeks before and then the sort of 2 weeks after for me,
Yeah.
I think are
Yeah.
always because I am number one because I am an introvert. So it's like, okay, I got to go out into the world and do the part that I'm not comfortable with.
Yeah.
So, but it's part of the job, of course, and it's always fine, and you meet lovely people,
You
and
do.
and I'm always excited actually when people tell me um, what they got out of it because you never know. I mean, releasing it into the world means okay, it's not just like on my shoulders anymore. And
You know, it's like
and
you don't have children, but it's sort of like having a kid. In other words, now the kid they go up, it goes off, and it does its own thing, makes its
yep,
own friends,
yep,
has its own
absolutely,
experiences.
yep.
Wow.
So I think I'll just be happy. I'll be happy when it's out there because it's felt like
Yeah.
um, a long journey with this one in particular.
Are you're going to do some like live event type stuff?
Yep. Yep. There'll be some live events pretty much through New England
Yeah.
over the next 2 weeks and then down in New York City. And then,
All right.
I mean, we kind of batted around where we wanted to go with this book tour wise. And we're just sort of like, well, I mean, it's July. Everybody comes to New England in July. So we'll stay where the people are.
Yeah, no, that's
And
fine.
it's lovely.
And
Yeah.
podcasts are good. A lot of people, I mean, the tours used to always be
Yeah.
national, but now people are doing podcasts and
Yeah.
keeping it
I
local.
I love the podcast setup actually. I think
I
it's
think
really great that there are so many of them
I do
for
too.
authors now.
Yeah,
It makes so much more sense.
I think so. I think so. And for some, I like to teach, and it's a good way to have. I can talk to somebody in Hawaii, and they can take my
Yep.
class. It's all this kind of stuff. And so, do you do? How long do you do a reading? Do you read?
Sometimes
Sometimes. Yeah.
I prefer the in conversation.
Aha, that's the new thing. That's sort
Yeah.
of I've seen that growing. I did that recently with someone when her book came through, and I think it makes sense. It's
Yeah.
actually more reading. The live reading is a hard thing. It can be
Yeah.
tough. It's not always. It's a very particular way to communicate with people. It's an unusual kind of theater, really.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. And I mean, when I do read, I always pick something that I'm pretty sure is funny.
good
Um,
idea. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I mean, the readers will always tell me,
yeah.
but I pick something that I'm relatively certain is funny, and yeah, and just and try to keep it short and try to keep it engaging.
I
Yeah,
Short is a good idea.
yeah,
I know not to because it's I don't know why, but it's an odd thing. Just to mention Andre Debus, he once said to me he went to Germany because years ago to do some reading, and he said, "How long do you want to read for? Like 20 or 30 minutes?" And the guy said 9. He goes, "No, no." He thought he meant no, as in German for
yeah,
no. He
yeah.
said 9 hours. And so they wanted to read, though, just sat down and they all just hunkered in, and it was just him reading and reading and reading and reading.
Oh
Can
God,
you
that's
imagine?
awful.
It sounds like hell.
It really does.
That sounds horrible. All
Although
right. Well, listen.
if somebody could do it, I think it would be Andre. But
Yeah, yes, and he was all game. He's a very funny
yeah,
guy. And I thought, all right. Until Allison, people, it's got mystery, it's got smarts, it's funny, it's got heart. What more the hell do you want from a book, you people? Come on, get out there. Um, Congratulations
thank
on book
you.
number two. I can't wait to see book number three.
Me
Uh,
too.
but I'm not done with you yet, Kate. I got one more question.
Okay.
I want you to think about all the writing you've done. I suppose you could lump your art. I mean, it's the arts really, but I'm going to talk
Yeah.
about writing. If it's taught you anything
Yeah.
about life, about being a person, it's
Yeah.
taught you what?
I think we've already hit on it. You've already said it. It's entertain yourself.
Ooh,
You're exactly right. It comes from within. Just entertain yourself because I know that sometimes I'm staring at my phone too much. I'm looking at social media. I'm wondering what everybody else is doing. And oh my God, when you put it down and you shove it to one side and you just entertain yourself, it is the most beautiful thing in the world. And I'm so happy that I have the ability to do that.